Hey everybody, I just want to do a video today about some writers I said I was going to do on that write very well about Black lives, so some African American writers, and then I'll go into a little bit more, but some of these writers have influenced me and I'll talk a little bit about that. So I just want to go through them right now. So the first book is Mildred Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. I read this in the 7th grade and it had a really drastic effect on me, and then I bought this edition later and I read it again. And in this book, this is actually a young adult novel, and in this book I always remembered a scene where the black students are going to school and they're being given textbooks that have been used by white students, and they're crappy, they're falling apart, they're penciled in, the spines are broken, and it's sort of like, these black students are given the hand-me-downs. So they're being told basically, you're not as important, you don't matter, so we're going to give you the shitty books. This, like I said, young adult book, but you don't have to be a little kid to appreciate it. I mean, this is a lot more intelligent than than anything you're going to find on the New York Times bestseller list written by these MFA hacks. And, oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry, not sorry. And fuck Harry Potter, okay? This is the stuff you should be reading, okay? This is an excellent book, and I'm mentioning books that I have not seen circulating. Okay, I'm doing different names here. Mildred Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Okay, that's the first one. All right, so one of the greatest books I've ever read. Sorry. I wish I wrote it. The Autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley. Alex Haley wrote Roots. This is one of the best books I've ever written. Really deep insight into this very intelligent individual. It's been a number of years since I've read it. I mean, probably 15 years. But I remember it had a tremendous impact on me because, as I said, I'll get to later, I'll show you what... Look at the... Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at I still have some memos in here, but the Autobiography of Malcolm X. Okay, next. All right, Charles Johnson, 20th century writer, Oxfording Tale. He's written 2 books, Oxfording Tale and Middle Passage. This is his magnum opus. It's a wonderful book, wonderfully poetic. This also is one that had a great influence on me. I wish he wrote more. It's about set in the antebellum South. A slave owner and his African-American butler stay up to all hours drinking. All right. Okay. It's been a while, but I am not someone, I can't all the time. I remember things by the impact they have on me. I'm not someone who remembers facts in like this linear way, but I remember it's wonderfully written and some great poetic moments. So here's one for you. Okay, then we want to cover the 2 giants in African American literature, and not in African American literature, but in American literature. I put these guys in the top 10. Okay, like, how do you even go a step further without reading Baldwin? Mr. Baldwin, okay? He's one of the greatest essayists ever that lived. I put him beside Isley. He and Isley. I mean, these 2, okay? These 2 are the giants. His novels are excellent. Go Tell Out on the Mountain, Giovanni's Room, Another Country, Going to Meet the Man. He is an excellent novelist. I will say I think he is a greater essayist, so I would rank him like this. I mean, it's sort of like outstanding, non-pareil, and excellent, so his novels are very good. His essays, though, are to die for. So James Baldwin, you can't go wrong with him, okay? Then, which brings me to the other giant, Richard Wright. Now, Richard Wright, I will say, his fiction probably moves me a little bit more than Baldwin's fiction does, okay? But Richard Wright wasn't as great an essayist as Baldwin, though he did write some great haikus. And I do think I'm going to do another video on African American poets. I just want to save that for another video. It'll get too long. So these books, both Native Son and Black Boy, this is in the same book here. You should read both. Native Son is his novel. Black Boy is his memoir. I put Black Boy alongside, again, one of the greatest memoirs I've ever read. This is beside All the Strange Hours by Lauren Isley. This tells this story. There's so much in this book that it's so well written. It's about this, not just his development as a black man in the South and moving to the North and the racism, but it's about his development as an artist. So it's just a fascinating read. He has a scene where, he tells his grandmother, he's like, I want to be a writer. His grandmother says, well, who'd want to read anything written by you? And also, so if you've ever felt this sort of like condescension, or been angry that people just sort of presume you're stupid, he has a great scene where he wants to read this book, these essays by Ambrose Bierce. He wants to know more about literature, but he goes to the library and he can't check out a book unless it's for a white man. So he pretends it's for a white man, and then his co-workers see him reading, and they see him, and he has this job, and they see him and they're like, huh, you're reading? And he remarks in the book, like, while on one hand, it's nice that they don't think I was dumb anymore, basically this patronizing quality, like, wow, you're black and you read. It's just, you see a lot of his anger, and you really come to understand what it really feels like to just have people shit on you for something you can't even control. They see what you look like and they think you must be a certain way. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. All of us, have experienced some level of that, but not to this degree of, really understanding it from the perspective of an African American in the 1930s in the South. There's nothing like that, where you basically can't win. And then Native Son is his novel. That's his most famous novel. And it deals somewhat with, now, God, I can't remember the characters' names. Jan and something, I can't remember the names. But he encounters this white couple, and the girl is one of these, like, guilty white liberal, like, snowflake types. And really what she's doing with him really makes him feel horrible. And it's sort of like, they're very patronizing. It discusses a lot of, like, sort of the patronizing quality of sometimes people trying to be helpful. Like, they're communist types, but they're really, like, there's still not really an equality there. So these books had a tremendous impact on me. So you can see I remember a lot of that specificity within them. Also, okay, so like Edward P. Jones, he's more recent. These short stories are wonderfully written. I read these, and I have used a number of these techniques in my own work. I think this is an excellent book. This is the only book of his I would recommend. I wasn't so impressed with his novel as much, but these short stories were good. I don't know, maybe he's just more of a short story writer. So Edward P. Jones is someone to check out. He hasn't published too much as far as I know, but I haven't also kept up with more contemporary stuff. And the last writer is some collected short stories, Chester Himes. This was a wonderful book to read. He reminded me of, in some way, he reminded me of Irwin Shaw. He just writes these really wonderful stories. They're very succinct. They're not so much poetic, but they're just really punchable, like kind of narrative punches that he gives. So Chester Himes is a book I recommend. You might have to dig around. Thunder's Mouth Press is the press for this. You know, because I've seen a lot of people like sort of recommend books, and I think it's important to really choose books based on not just for like, you know, socio-political reasons, but really, you know, the quality. And so I really tried to offer here some books that really everyone should read. And I never liked the fact that black writers are lumped with black writers and women writers are lumped with women writers. I mean, even people today who ask me questions, they're like, what are you know, you're a woman writer, you know? And I like to think of myself as a writer first, and then, yeah, I have boobs. But, you know, that's not what defines me. If I was a guy, I'd still be a writer, you know? And all these individuals, yes, their writing is shaped by the fact that they are black and their experiences, but their creativity and their artistry is innate. That's just who they are. And so, finishing up this video, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my own work, simply because this is my video and I'm going to do that. So I know this is a huge book. I didn't realize it, but I'm sorry. But Quick with Flies is the novel I wrote in 2004. I have both ebook and the print. The print is large as hell. But this is an African American character. And there was a time, you know, I wrote this when I was 27, and I was reading a shit ton of, you know, black writers at the time. And I wanted to tell a story with that perspective in mind. And so that's what I did. I have a follow-up. There's a character in there named Winky who appears, and it's followed up in here in the Winky Tales. And these are sort of a lighter PG-13 version of what's in Quick with Flies. But this book does touch on racism, and it's told from the point of view of a black man's perspective. As far as my history in publishing this, I had an agent very interested in wanting to publish this at one time, or wanting to take this on. But she told me that she asked me to send her a photo, which I thought was strange, and she saw that I wasn't black, and she said, well, your ethnicity is a problem. Now, I have the opinion that it doesn't matter who writes it, that the work is something separate. And if you're willing to read and study and do the work and put the effort in, you know, write what you know, write what you experience, or write what you know, write what you study. I can never know what it was like to be a black man in the 1930s in the South, okay? I can never know that because I was born after and I'm a white woman, all right? But I also am writing currently about Joan of Arc. I don't know what it was like to live and be burned at the stake in 1431. Okay, that's every bit as imaginative. I tend to like, if you can see the correlation between a book like this and say someone like Joan of Arc, you wouldn't make that connection, but there are people who are outcasts. There are people who are judged because they don't fit into the mainstream or what's accepted by society. So when I wrote this book, I'm very much about humanity first, and the whole idea of having empathy is that it doesn't matter deep inside what race you are, that we're all human, okay? Obviously race shapes your day-to-day experiences. There's no doubt about that. But like you look at the Enneagram, it doesn't matter. Type 4, I'm a 4. So was Rumi. So was Baldwin, James Baldwin. You know, so was Ananias Nin. You know, men, women, multiple races, we feel the same things deep down. And so when you can get to that universal element, that's what I believe transcends So while this book is involving ideas about race, a black character, if you really dig down deep, it's really about a man trying to find his identity. And this is just the vehicle for it, you know? So that's my book. And you know, it's not just this. I have a trilogy on Japan. I have a trilogy on India. I have a book on, you know, communist China. I have a book told from the point of view of a Catholic nun. I'm none of these things, no pun. But I can still write about them as long as I'm thoughtful and I put in the effort and study it. It's fair game. So, you know, all these writers that I just gave to you have shaped me in some way. And Quick with Flies I wrote in 2004, The Winky Tales in 2005. I still plan to release eventually the other 2 books in this American Earth trilogy, but they were written so early that earlier books of mine take longer to revise. So, anyway, also I'd like to mention that through the month of June, Criterion is offering free streaming of Black Lives films, so films about Black lives, and I can offer a link to that below. So if you're interested, you don't have to insert a credit card, you don't have to insert an email, no strings attached, just hit play if that's what interests you. So I think that's all I have for right now. I'm gonna have some more pretty soon, but I thank you for listening, and yeah, that's all I got. So I'll be in touch and hope everyone is having a pleasant afternoon.